This is eternal human spirit, where every story proves why humanity never breaks.
The silent attack. The night was calm across the world, skies above. New York, Beijing, and Karachi looked peaceful, stars shining like tiny fires across the endless black. People walked under the streetlights, children laughed in the parks, and the world felt normal. But far above, beyond what human eyes could see, something had already begun. The first sign came quietly. Satellites stopped working, not all at once, but one by one. In mission control rooms, alarms buzzed as screens went dark. Engineers shouted to each other, trying to bring back the signals. They thought maybe it was a storm in space or a failure in the systems. But deep down, some felt it was not natural. Across the oceans, communication towers began to lose power. Radio channels filled with static, television screens froze, and phones stopped connecting. For a moment, it seemed like the world had gone blind. The internet shook, and in a single hour, half the world was cut off from the other half. Panic spread in whispers. Governments moved quickly. Presidents, generals, and scientists filled underground bunkers, trying to understand what was happening, but there were no clear answers, only silence from the sky. Then came the shadows. People in remote villages saw strange shapes high above, black against the stars. Some thought they were clouds. Others thought they were falling meteors. But cameras caught the truth. Giant structures moving slowly, silently, as if watching the Earth. The media that was still alive called it the silent visitors. But most channels went offline within hours. The few surviving news reporters spoke with shaking voices. Some cried while speaking live. "This is not from Earth," one said before the screen cut off. The people on the streets looked up. Some prayed, some screamed, some refused to believe. But in every city, every town, there was fear. Fear of the unknown. Fear of what might come next. Inside the Pentagon, generals debated if it was an attack. One scientist stood and said, "They are shutting us down piece by piece. They want us blind before they strike." No one argued. The truth was too heavy. To deny, then, in the middle of the night, a strange broadcast appeared. Not from Earth, not from any human station, but from deep space. It was a signal caught by the last few working receivers. A single voice filled the speakers, cold, mechanical, and distant. "Prepare," the voice said. "They are coming for the end of humanity." The words spread like fire, secretly shared between survivors, whispered in dark rooms, written on scraps of paper where the internet no longer lived. It was the first and only warning humanity would get. Cities prepared for the worst. Sirens screamed across streets. Soldiers ran through bases. Families locked themselves inside their homes. But no one knew how to fight something they could not even see clearly. Hours later, the first strike came. A flash of light brighter than the sun cut through the sky over Tokyo. Then silence. When people opened their eyes, a part of the city was gone, burned into ashes. No sound of planes, no enemy, missiles, just destruction from nowhere. The second strike hit Paris. A tower of fire rose into the clouds. Windows shattered for miles, and people fell to the ground crying. The alien ships had not shown themselves. They attacked from the shadows, swift and merciless. Humanity's leaders tried to send messages into space, begging for peace. But there was no answer. No demands, no words, no faces of the enemy. Only death falling from the sky. And yet, in the chaos, small groups of people held hope. In the basements of hospitals, doctors worked without rest. In destroyed neighborhoods, neighbors pulled each other from ruins. Soldiers stood guard in broken streets. Even when orders stopped coming, they did not understand the enemy. They did not know why they were attacked. But one thing was clear. Humanity was standing on the edge of something far greater than war. Something that wanted not just their lives, but their very existence. The silent attack had begun, and the world would never be the same again. The first encounter. For many days, after the silent attack, the world lived in shock. The destruction of Tokyo and Paris was burned into human memory. But what made the terror greater was the silence that followed. No official declaration of war, no communication from the enemy, just the knowledge that something powerful was above Earth. Watching, waiting, humanity tried to move forward, but every hour felt like a countdown to something worse. In the underground, shelters of Washington, the United Nations gathered in secret. Leaders from broken nations argued, shouted, and demanded answers. Generals demanded to strike back. Scientists demanded to understand, but all of them were powerless. Their satellites were gone, their technology crippled. They were fighting blind. A woman named Dr. Evelyn Clark, one of the last surviving astrophysicists who had tracked the mysterious signals before the attack, stood before them with trembling hands. Her voice was steady but cold. "They are not here to conquer," she said. "They are here to erase us." Her words struck like thunder in the silent chamber. No one wanted to believe, but the signs were everywhere. The targets were not random. They were not destroying only military bases or political capitals. They were striking symbols of humanity. Tokyo, a city of culture and technology. Paris, a city of art and history. Erasing not just lives, but memory. That same night, while leaders argued below ground, people across the world saw the skies change. A new formation of ships appeared, this time not hiding in the shadows, but revealing themselves in the upper atmosphere. The ships were vast, triangular, and dark, covered in patterns of glowing lines like scars of energy across their surfaces. They did not move like human craft. They glided, silent and smooth, as if gravity itself bent for them. The sight of them alone made millions fall to their knees. In fear, in New Delhi, a boy named Arjun stood on the rooftop of his ruined home, staring at the strange light reflected off their hulls. His father pulled him away, shouting that it was not safe, but Arjun whispered, "They look like shadows of gods." In truth, no one knew what these beings were. Some called them destroyers, some demons, others angels of death. But whatever they were, their purpose was becoming clear. The first real encounter came when one of the alien vessels descended lower than any before, hovering over the ruins of Berlin. Survivors scattered as the ship's hull opened like a wound in the sky, and from within stepped figures unlike anything human eyes had seen. They were tall, their bodies shaped like warriors carved from steel and bone. Their eyes glowed with cold fire, and their movements were mechanical yet fluid. They carried no weapons in their hands, yet the air around them seemed to burn with invisible power. Soldiers who still guarded the ruins aimed their rifles. Their hands shook, but they fired anyway. Bullets flew, explosions shook the streets, but when the smoke cleared, the alien figures still stood, not a scratch on them. Their glowing eyes moved across the soldiers as if studying, judging, and then, with a single gesture, an unseen force lifted the human troops into the air and threw them across the ruins like broken dolls. Screams filled the night as survivors fled deeper underground. Dr. Evelyn Clark, watching the broadcast from a stolen military drone, felt her blood turn to ice. "They are not only erasing our history," she whispered to her assistant. "They are erasing us from existence." The assistant asked in confusion, "Then why do they not speak? Why not demand surrender?" Evelyn closed her eyes. "Because to them, we are not worth speaking to." The world's fear turned into despair. Rumors spread that entire villages had been taken, wiped clean as if they never existed. Families gone without a trace. Records erased from what little remained of digital systems. Survivors began carving names into walls and stones, desperate to leave proof that they once lived. One old man in Africa said, "If they destroy us, at least our words will remain in stone for someone to remember." His words spread among refugees, becoming a quiet act of resistance. But not everyone accepted despair. In a hidden military base in South America, a young cadet named Marcus Kane swore that humanity would not vanish quietly. He gathered soldiers and civilians, teaching them to fight, not with advanced weapons, but with creativity and courage. "They can burn our cities," he said, "but they cannot burn our spirit." His words inspired small groups across the world, planting the seed of resistance that would grow in the shadows. Meanwhile, the alien ships continued their silent mission, striking cities, erasing culture, targeting libraries, museums, and monuments. To them, destroying humanity meant more than killing bodies. It meant removing every memory, every story, every piece of proof that humans had ever lived. Yet in their cold calculations, they made one mistake. They underestimated the power of human spirit, a power that could not be measured in weapons or numbers. The first encounter ended with fire and silence, but beneath the ashes of cities, whispers grew. Whispers of defiance, whispers of survival, whispers of hope. Humanity had seen its enemy, and though fear consumed their hearts, a hidden flame began to rise, a flame the aliens could never erase, the hidden spirit. In the weeks that followed the first encounter, the world seemed to fall into shadow. Cities still burned. Skies were still filled with the silent presence of alien ships, and humanity struggled to understand the true purpose. Behind the invasion, at first people believed the aliens only wanted destruction. But soon the truth became more frightening, for the enemy was not simply trying to kill humanity, they were trying to erase it completely. Dr. Evelyn Clark was the first to see the pattern, working in a secret underground facility beneath the ruins of Geneva. She studied fragments of data left behind after the attacks. She noticed that the aliens did not strike at random. They targeted libraries, digital servers, and historical monuments before they targeted homes or armies. In every city they destroyed, they first erased the archives, wiping every trace of knowledge and memory. Her voice trembled as she spoke to the resistance leaders gathered around her. "They do not just want us dead. They want to remove the proof that we ever lived." This discovery spread like wildfire across the underground networks of survivors. In broken cities and shattered villages, people whispered the same fearful truth. The enemy was not only attacking their bodies, but their identity, their history, their very existence. Survivors began writing stories by hand, carving names into stones, painting messages on walls, desperate to leave some mark that the enemy could not erase. A mother in Mexico told her child, "Even if they burn our books, your name will remain on this wall, and someday someone will read it." Her words carried a weight that spread far beyond her home. Meanwhile, Marcus Kane, the young cadet who had sworn resistance in South America, took this knowledge and used it to inspire his people. Standing before a crowd of frightened survivors, his clothes torn and his voice hoarse, he declared, "If they want to erase our history, then we will make new history with every step we take, every act of defiance, every life we save, every word we speak becomes a weapon. They cannot erase what refuses to die." His words lit sparks in the hearts of many, turning despair into quiet determination. But resistance was not only born of speeches. Across the world, small groups began to strike back in clever ways. A group of students in ruined London hacked into an abandoned alien probe, broadcasting messages of survival on every channel they could find. In Cairo, engineers built hidden transmitters powered by the sun, sending human songs into space, hoping that if humanity fell, someone out there would remember their voices. In the frozen wastelands of Siberia, old farmers hid children in caves, teaching them stories by firelight, saying, "You are our memory, never forget." The aliens noticed. Their cold eyes turned toward these sparks of defiance, and they increased. Their attacks, cities that still held survivors, were wiped out. Digital traces of their existence vanished from every system. It seemed hopeless. Yet, despite the terror, humanity's spirit only grew stronger. For every archive erased, 3 more stories were told by word of mouth. For every monument destroyed, children scratched drawings in the dirt. For every signal cut, another rose from hidden hands. Humanity's greatest weapon was not technology. It was the will to endure. Doctor, Evelyn continued her studies, digging deeper into the alien signals. One night, as she traced the strange codes they used to wipe out digital memory, she discovered something shocking. The aliens were terrified of stories. Their technology could destroy machines, burn cities, erase data, but they could not silence the spoken word passed from one human to another. They could not erase the emotion of a song sung in the dark. They could not delete the courage in a child's whisper. Mother, I will not forget, Evelyn realized. The truth, humanity's spirit was not bound by stone or steel. It lived in their voices, their love, their sacrifice. That was the one thing the aliens could never destroy. She carried this revelation to Marcus and the Resistance, telling them, "They can erase our records, but they cannot erase the spirit that carries within us. That is our weapon, and that is what will save us." Marcus listened, his eyes burning with a fire that no alien beam could extinguish. He turned to his people and shouted, "Then let us fight with that spirit. Let us carve our names in the stars. Let us tell our stories so loud that no power in the galaxy can silence us." The crowd roared with voices that shook the underground chamber, and, for the first time since the silent attack, hope felt stronger than fear. Above them, in the cold void of space, the alien commanders observed. Their glowing eyes watched the humans rise again and again. They had believed humanity would break easily, that once their history was erased, they would collapse into silence. But instead, the opposite happened. Humanity was uniting. Humanity was resisting. Humanity was proving that their true strength was not in their weapons, but in the unbreakable spirit that lived inside them. The hidden spirit of humanity had been revealed, and it was more dangerous to the invaders than any weapon ever built. For the first time, cracks appeared in the perfect silence of the enemy. As if somewhere deep within their cold design, they began to fear the very thing they thought they could erase. Humanity's resistance. The world was in ruins. Yet from the ashes, something unexpected began to grow. What the aliens thought would be the end of humanity became the beginning of something greater. Across continents, survivors who once hid in silence started to rise. Their fear was still there, but it was no longer stronger than the burning spirit inside them. In tunnels, caves, forests, and hidden bases, humanity's resistance was being born. Marcus Kane became a symbol of this rising flame. He was not a general, nor a famous leader, but his voice carried a strength that made people believe again. When he walked among the survivors in the hidden camps of South America, he did not speak of victory or promises of safety. Instead, he said simple words that reached every broken heart. "We are still alive. That means we have already won the first battle." Those words spread faster than fire, whispered in shelters, written on scraps of paper, repeated in the darkest nights, and everywhere people began to prepare. But the resistance was not built on weapons alone. It was built on creativity, on the human ability to fight with the mind as much as the body. Old radios were repaired with scraps of wire and batteries. Children carried messages between villages under the cover of night. Engineers turned farming machines into weapons, and artists painted symbols of resistance on ruined walls. Each act was small, but together they became powerful. Together they reminded humanity that even in despair, there was a way forward. Dr. Evelyn Clark worked without rest in her hidden lab. Piecing together fragments of alien technology and broken human data, she knew that humanity could not defeat the aliens in direct combat. Their ships were too strong, their weapons too advanced, but she also knew their weakness. They feared stories. They feared memory. They feared the spirit that refused to die. So she began creating something new, a weapon that was not of steel or fire, but of voice and signal. She taught survivors to send coded messages of human history, songs, and names across every frequency they could find. Even if 1 in 1,000 signals survived, it was enough to remind the galaxy that humanity still lived. The aliens responded. With fury, their ships struck harder, erasing cities that dared to send signals into space. Yet with every attack, more humans stood up. The more the enemy tried to silence them, the louder humanity's spirit became. In Africa, entire villages moved underground, telling stories by torchlight. In Europe, broken armies formed guerrilla groups, striking alien patrols in the ruins of cities. In Asia, secret schools taught children history and language, ensuring the memory of humanity could never be erased. The resistance was not just soldiers, it was everyone. Mothers, children, elders, farmers, scientists, each of them carrying the flame in their own way. Marcus saw this transformation and realized something powerful. Humanity was no longer fighting to survive. They were fighting to prove they could never be forgotten. They were fighting for meaning. Standing before a crowd of new recruits, he raised a stolen alien weapon high in the air and shouted, "They think they can erase us, but they do not understand. We are not only flesh and blood, we are memory, we are spirit, and that spirit cannot be erased." The cheers that followed shook the underground chamber, and even in the face of annihilation, people began to believe that victory was possible. Meanwhile, the aliens themselves began to change. Their commanders observed with cold eyes as resistance spread like a disease they could not contain. They destroyed cities, erased archives, silenced radios, yet new voices rose again and again. For the first time, the alien war councils grew uneasy. One commander whispered in their strange tongue, "They should be broken, but they rise again. Why do they not fall silent?" Another replied with fear in its voice, "Because they are not fighting for survival, they are fighting for something we do not understand." The battles grew fiercer. In Brazil, human fighters lured an alien patrol into the rainforest, where they used the jungle itself as a weapon, striking from shadows and vanishing into the green. In the ruins of Moscow, survivors planted traps in the streets, forcing alien machines into ambushes. In deserts and mountains, humanity fought with whatever they had: arrows, stones, fire, and the will to keep going. To the aliens, it seemed primitive, but to the humans it was proof. Proof that their spirit was stronger than any weapon. Dr. Evelyn's greatest breakthrough came when she discovered that human voices, when broadcast in massive unison, disrupted alien systems. She realized it was not the sound itself, but the emotion carried within it. Machines could not erase the power of spirit carried in words. The first test came when thousands of survivors in hidden camps sang together, their voices carried by radio waves across a ruined continent. Alien machines above faltered, their systems flickering. For the first time since the invasion began, the enemy stumbled. This victory was small, but it was enough. It showed humanity that the aliens were not gods. They were not invincible. They could be resisted. They could be hurt. The resistance grew bolder. Their voices grew louder, and the aliens began to feel something they had never known before: fear. And so, in the darkest chapter of Earth's history, something extraordinary happened. Humanity, broken and scattered, found strength in unity. They became not only survivors but warriors of spirit. Each act of defiance was a message to the stars. Each life saved was proof that humanity could never be erased. The resistance was not only the fight of the living, it was the fight of every memory, every story, every soul that had ever walked the earth. The war was far from over, but the tide had begun to shift. For the first time, it was not only the aliens who attacked, but humanity who struck back. And in that moment, in every hidden camp and ruined city, people believed the same truth, whispered in the darkness. We are the resistance, and we will never be erased. The alien, fear high above the burning earth, the alien armada floated in silence. From orbit, they looked like black scars against the stars, vast and unshaken. But inside their command chambers, something strange was happening. For the first time in countless campaigns, doubt had entered their thoughts. These beings had crushed countless species, erased entire civilizations, and left behind nothing but dust. Yet humanity was different. Humanity refused to disappear, and that refusal unsettled them. In the central vessel, a commander known as Vaith observed the planet with cold, glowing eyes. Reports flowed before him, numbers showing destroyed cities, erased data, and millions of human lives extinguished. By all logic, the humans should have already collapsed. They should have accepted defeat. They should have become silent. Yet the opposite was true. For every city destroyed, more resistance rose. For every archive erased, more voices carried their history. Vaith's clawed hands tightened around the command rail as he growled, "They are not falling as others did. They grow stronger." On Earth, the resistance could feel the shift. Strange. Patterns were noticed in alien behavior. Their attacks became less precise, their patrols less confident. Marcus Kane saw this and understood what it meant. He stood before a group of exhausted fighters, dirt covering their faces, weapons cobbled together from scraps. "Do you see it?" he said, pointing to the sky. "They fear us. They fear the thing inside us they cannot kill. They have power greater than we can imagine, yet they tremble before our spirit." His words lit fire in tired eyes, reminding even the weakest soldier why they still fought. Dr. Evelyn Clark confirmed it with her studies. She intercepted alien signals, reading fragments of their communications. For the first time, she saw hesitation in their coded words. In one intercepted message, she read, "The humans continue to resist beyond calculated limits. Spirit contamination detected." She stared at the words, realizing what it meant. The aliens did not even have a proper word for it. They called it contamination. But what they feared was not disease. It was the unbreakable human will. Meanwhile, the people of Earth turned their fear into defiance. In the ruins of Rome, survivors lit fires in the shape of a cross, sending a signal to the sky. In New York, children painted murals on the walls of broken towers, showing images of humans standing tall against shadows. In Africa, tribes gathered to drum through the night, their rhythms echoing across valleys. In Asia, monks chanted ancient verses inside temples shattered by alien beams. The world had become a battlefield, but it had also become a stage. Every act of survival, a declaration that humanity still lived. The aliens struck harder. Their ships unleashed storms of fire, leveling entire landscapes. But instead of breaking humans, the attacks only deepened their unity. Refugees from across the world began to gather together, sharing food, stories, and hope. Soldiers no longer fought for governments. They fought for humanity itself. And in every corner of the earth, whispers spread like sacred truth. They fear us now. They fear what they cannot erase. Inside the Alien War Council, arguments erupted. One commander demanded that humanity be destroyed faster, that total planetary annihilation should begin, but others hesitated. If we destroy them too quickly, their voices may spread beyond this system. One argued. Already their signals carry further than predicted. Vaith struck the table, his voice sharp. This species must not remain. Their spirit spreads like fire, and fire must be smothered. Yet his own words betrayed something he had never known before: uncertainty. On Earth, Marcus Kane led a daring raid. His fighters struck an alien supply craft hidden in the Andes. For the first time, They captured alien technology intact. In the heart of the machine, they found records of other worlds, entire civilizations erased without a trace. The fighters looked at the files in horror, realizing what fate awaited them if they failed. Marcus lifted the device high and shouted, "This is what they did to others. But it will not be our story. Humanity will not be forgotten." His soldiers roared in agreement, their voices echoing like thunder in the mountains. The discovery spread hope across the resistance. Messages were carved into stone tablets, scratched into metal scraps, and whispered into every hidden cave. If the aliens wanted to erase humanity, then humans would make themselves impossible. To erase, every child who survived became a carrier of memory. Every elder became a teacher, every soldier became not just a fighter, but a storyteller of the human spirit. Dr. Evelyn developed a dangerous plan. If human voices disrupted alien systems, then perhaps a united broadcast, not of machines but of human emotion, could reach beyond Earth itself. She began preparing transmitters hidden across continents, urging survivors to prepare to speak, sing, and cry into the skies together. "They fear our spirit because they cannot kill it," she told Marcus. "So let us show them that it lives in all of us, louder than any weapon they can build." Marcus agreed, knowing it was a gamble that could cost them everything, but also knowing it was the only way to prove humanity's strength. Above Earth, the aliens felt the shift more clearly with each passing day. Their weapons still burned, their ships still hovered, but their control was slipping. For the first time in their long history of conquest, they were not only questioned by their victims, but haunted by them. The humans were not supposed to endure, and yet they did. The humans were not supposed to fight, and yet they rose. The humans were not supposed to matter, and yet their spirit was spreading into the stars. And deep within the cold heart of Commander Vaith, something he had never felt before began to grow. It was not respect, not yet, but something more dangerous to his kind. It was fear, the turning point. The world had reached a breaking point. Entire continents were scarred, skies were filled with smoke, and oceans glowed with the fires of fallen cities. Yet in the ruins of Earth, something unstoppable was rising. Humanity, broken and bleeding, was no longer fighting only to survive. They were fighting to prove they could never be erased. They were fighting to make their voices echo beyond the silence forced upon them. And this resolve carried them to the moment history would later call the turning point. Dr. Evelyn Clark worked endlessly in her hidden facility beneath the mountains. Her hands shook from exhaustion, her eyes red from nights without sleep, but her mind burned with fire. She had pieced together the alien transmissions, learning that their technology bent to logic, numbers, and silence, but faltered when struck with chaos, emotion, and memory. The aliens could destroy machines, but they could not destroy the human heart, and Evelyn's plan was to make that heart roar across the galaxy. She called it the Chorus, a desperate project to unite every hidden transmitter, every broken satellite, every surviving radio tower, and send one unstoppable wave of human memory into the stars, not a weapon of fire or steel, but a weapon of voices, songs, and stories. She explained it to Marcus Kane, who now led the scattered resistance. "If they want to erase us," she said with trembling passion, "then let us write ourselves into the very fabric of the universe. They cannot silence billions of voices at once." Marcus stared at her, and though he was a soldier who had seen countless battles, tears filled his eyes. "Then we will give them a song they will never forget," he said. The preparations began in secret, across the shattered world. Survivors repaired broken machines, rewired alien scraps, and turned ruins into signal towers. Children painted words of hope on broken satellites before they were relaunched into the skies. Farmers dug trenches not for crops but to power transmitters with wind and fire. Teachers gathered groups of children and taught them old songs, ancient poems, forgotten prayers. "When the day comes," they whispered, "your voices will carry the weight of all humanity." The aliens noticed the strange rise in transmissions. They grew suspicious. Their commanders ordered increased patrols, burning villages and smashing old towers, but humanity learned to hide their work, disguising transmitters as ruins, burying wires beneath rubble, and carrying signals through small devices hidden in clothing. For every tower destroyed, 3 more were built in secret. The harder the aliens tried to stop them, the stronger the project grew, and for the first time, the invaders could not control the spread of human defiance. When the day of the chorus arrived, it was not announced with drums or banners. It began in silence, a silence that covered the ruined earth. Then, slowly, one by one, voices rose. A child in Brazil sang an old lullaby. A farmer in Egypt recited the names of his ancestors. A teacher in Japan whispered the story of her people. A soldier in Russia shouted the oath of his fallen comrades. And across the earth, billions of voices joined, rising into a storm of sound, memory, and spirit. The alien armada heard it. Their machines detected the signals at once, but they could not shut them down. The chorus spread faster than their technology could erase. It carried not numbers, but emotions. Not codes, but meaning. And their systems began to falter. Screens flickered, weapons misfired, navigation collapsed. As if the voices of humanity themselves were striking against the cold silence of their empire. In the central vessel, Commander Vaith stood frozen. He had prepared for every kind of war. Fire, steel, numbers, destruction. But he had never prepared. For this, billions of voices crying at once, billions of stories woven into one unstoppable wave. It was not noise, it was not chaos, it was life itself. And for the first time in his existence, Vaith felt powerless. His officers screamed in panic. The contamination spreads, systems failing, resistance overwhelming. But he already knew the truth. It was not contamination. It was spirit, on Earth. Marcus Kane stood on a hill of ruins, holding a stolen transmitter. His own voice joined the storm. They wanted to erase us, but now we are eternal. Every voice, every song, every name is a weapon. We are humanity, and we will never fall silent. Around him, his soldiers wept as they screamed their own truths into the skies, and the chorus only grew stronger. Dr. Evelyn Clark, watching from her underground chamber, felt her heart break and heal at once. She saw the alien signals collapse, their patterns unraveling like broken threads. "It's working," she whispered. "We are breaking them with our voices." And for the first time, she believed victory was possible not through destruction, but through remembrance. The aliens tried to fight back. Their ships fired beams into cities. Their machines crushed resistance fighters. But no matter how much fire they unleashed, the chorus did not stop. It lived not in one place, but in every heart. It spread across. The stars, bouncing from satellite to satellite, from ruined tower to hidden cave, and in the face of endless death, humanity's spirit proved unkillable. Commander Vaith stared at the chaos in disbelief. His perfect empire of silence was crumbling. Not from weapons, not from armies, but from something he had never understood. He turned to his council and hissed, "They fight with something beyond reason. They fight with spirit, and spirit cannot be erased." The words tasted like defeat in his mouth. The turning point had come. Humanity was still battered, broken, and bleeding. But they had struck a wound in their enemy that could never heal. For the first time in this endless war, the invaders were afraid. For the first time, humanity was not just surviving, but winning, and in the silence after the chorus filled the skies, a truth was written forever. A truth no alien could erase. Humanity had found its weapon, and that weapon was the unbreakable spirit that lived within every human soul. The spirit eternal. The chorus had shaken the skies. It had filled the void between stars with voices, with memories, with the unbreakable heartbeat of a species that refused to die. The alien armada that once seemed invincible now drifted in confusion, their systems broken, their unity fractured. For the first time in their endless history of conquest, they had met something that their weapons could not destroy, something their silence could not smother. They had met the human spirit. On the ground, the world trembled with both terror and hope. Cities still burned, ruins still smoked, but in those ruins people stood tall. The chorus had given them proof that they were not helpless, proof that they were not forgotten. Children who once cried in fear now raised their voices in songs. Old men and women told stories to crowds huddled in the dark. Soldiers, though tired and wounded, fought harder than ever. Their strength was no longer only for survival, it was for meaning, for legacy, for eternity. Commander Vaith watched from his vessel. His eyes burned with something unfamiliar, fear mixed with awe. He had seen countless species fall in silence, their names erased, forever. But humanity was different. They were not falling, they were rising. Even as their cities lay in ashes, they roared. He turned to his council and said words his kind had never spoken before. They are dangerous not because of what they have, but because of what they are. Their spirit infects everything. If it spreads, others will rise as well. The chamber fell silent, for none of his kind had ever spoken of fear, and yet now it was carved into their voices. Across Earth, Marcus Kane became the face of defiance. He was no king, no president, no chosen hero, but his name carried on the wind like fire. Standing atop the ruins of what was once a grand city, he looked at the sky and shouted, "You can burn our homes, you can erase our history, you can silence our machines, but you cannot erase us. We are humanity, and we will endure beyond you." His words were caught by hidden transmitters, carried into the chorus, and amplified into the stars. Doctor. Evelyn Clark stood in her underground command room, her hands shaking as she listened to the endless storm of voices. She knew the aliens could still kill them, could still destroy Earth, but she also knew something greater had already been won. "They cannot stop it now," she whispered. "Even if we fall, our spirit is already among the stars, and it will never be silenced." Her assistant, tears in his eyes, nodded. "Then we are already eternal." The aliens, unable to stop the chorus, tried to destroy Earth completely. Their ships aligned, weapons glowing with the power to split mountains and boil oceans. But as they prepared their final strike, the impossible happened. Other signals began to rise, not human signals, not from Earth, but from distant corners of the galaxy. Civilizations that had once lived in silence, too afraid to resist, had heard the voices of humanity, and something within them had awakened. They began to sing, to shout, to roar, their signals, carried across the stars, joining with the human chorus. The alien command collapsed into chaos. Vaith roared at his officers. This was not supposed to happen. The fire spreads, it will burn the galaxy. And he was right. The chorus had become more than humanity's weapon. It had become a spark, a seed of resistance in the hearts of other species who had long accepted silence. Humanity's defiance had become their defiance. Humanity's spirit had become their spirit. On Earth, the people did not know this yet. They only felt the change in the air. They only saw the alien ships hesitate, their weapons falter, their silence shatter. But in the heavens, the truth was clear. Humanity had changed the galaxy forever. Humanity had reminded the universe of something it had forgotten, that no empire, no weapon, no shadow could erase a people who refused to be erased. As dawn rose over the broken earth, survivors gathered in the light. They were scarred, hungry, and tired, but they were alive. And more than alive, they were eternal. For even if their bodies fell, their voices had already been carried into eternity. The chorus would live long after the war. Written into the stars themselves, Marcus stood with Evelyn on a hill of ruins. watching the alien ships drift back into the dark, not destroyed but defeated in spirit. "Do you think they will return?" Marcus asked, his voice heavy but steady. Evelyn looked at the sky, where the stars seemed brighter than ever. "Maybe," she said, "but if they do, they will never face silence again. They will face a people whose spirit cannot be killed, and now the galaxy knows it too." Marcus smiled faintly. "Then humanity has already won." And so the story of Earth did not end with silence. It did not end with erasure. It did not end with defeat. Instead, it became the story of how a fragile species, bound to a single world, stood against the endless void and refused to vanish. It became the story of voices that rose against fire and shadows, voices that carried memory, love, sacrifice, and hope. It became the story of a spirit eternal, a spirit that no weapon could destroy, a spirit that would echo across galaxies for all time. Humanity had faced the edge of extinction, and in that moment, they had found the truth. They were not only survivors, they were eternal.
Thank you for joining Eternal Human Spirit, where humanity always rises again.